points. We've got flexion, extension, ulnar deviation, radial deviation. We're going to be reminded that these intercarpal, so in between the carpals, that's going to be a gliding motion more than a big motion. So what your carpals do is just add a little oomph to that flexion, extension, ulnar deviation, radial deviation. Okay. So that's not, you know, it's like, it's sort of the collective movement that we're measuring when we measure it. And which side are we always going to use to measure that? If we're measuring flexion, extension?
The proximal size.
Ulnar.
Oh, ulnar side.
Actually, medial.
Oh, right.
Actually, medial, or the ulnar side, yep.
Oh, yeah, duh.
Okay, this is starting to talk about like the arches in the wrist. So we're used to hearing about our arches on our feet. Did you think about having arches in your hand and wrist?
They pop all the time. Mine do. They pop out, and I have to like pop that.
That's because you have no room.
This is true.
Okay, so what you need to do is just like look at your hand at rest. And so if we look at, see, this is coming in handy. So if you look at the bones here, there's a little bit of an arch here, right? We've got to have an open space because we've got 9 structures that run through here. So remember, we talked about flexor digitorum, superficialis, and profundus. Okay, you got at least 8 tendons there between the 2, right? 4 fingers, 2 levels, 8 tendons, and then the median nerve goes through there. Okay, so that's one part of the arch, but then you're going to have what we call the palmar arch as well. So if you just relax your hand, you see how it's kind of cupped a little bit? Okay, this is important for function because when you start doing making splints, that's part of what you have to keep in mind is what's neutral for the wrist and maintaining that arch. Sometimes we go to a flatter hand, but not frequently. We want to, you know, as we're immobilizing somebody for whatever good reason, we want to maintain that palmar arch. Because if you've got a flat hand and you're stuck like this, can you really use your thumb functionally? Yeah, but if you've got a little bit of arch, you're already starting that process. Okay, so that's a functional piece that's really, really, really important. So about the only time we would do a flat hand is if somebody had really bad, like maybe burns in the palm, and we wanted to keep it in a, let it heal in a stretched position so it didn't pull down like this. Okay, but you would actually be having them come out of the splint and work it some in between times. Okay, and typically with hands, you know, unless there's been a reason for them to put their hand down on something hot, typically burns, it's the back of the hand. Because typically what happens is you come up like this to cover your face. So hand burns, you know, in a burn situation.